All right, let's get into the second part of the My Virus profile on more of a world scale. I think we left off with guilt, shame. So we're just kind of going over the tactics that are getting used by a mind virus that are closest in profile to like narcissist or sociopath, psychopath. Is kind of generically. This is from what I've seen and from what I've been able to kind of compile based on all my research. The kind of traits and tactics that these guys use. It's a little generic. I kind of refer to it as a mind virus because this is replicating from relationships all the way up into kind of the world affairs, world scene. And I think it's really helpful for people to become acquainted with these different tactics so that they understand what's happening, because it's very confusing. And if you don't understand the tactics, then you have no idea. You're just spinning around on emotional puppet strings, and you will be played until it's way too late when you finally realize what's going on. And unfortunately, once you finally realize what's going on, you'll still not be willing to believe it. So let's just keep on with this. So shame, guilt card, we covered that. So let's talk about plausible deniability. It's another tactic. What does that mean? Big words. What it means is a person will situate themselves or make sure that however they word something or however they enact something, that they can have a way to say, well, that's not what I meant, or that's not what I did, or that was someone else. And so it's kind of an out, or a escape hatch, if you will, for any kind of guilt or any way of proving that that the person has been doing something they shouldn't be doing. And with plausible deniability, they're never gonna, whatever they say, it's going to be carefully crafted. They're so good at it, it's second nature. You really can't pin them down. It's hard to get them to, even if they, are firm on something, they have a way to, point the blame at someone else or some alternative explanation for what's happened. And so that's basically plausible deniability in the world scene. I mean, you see that all the time. It's kind of this gray area. A lot of the times it's a gray area. It's really hard to, it's almost like even when you have proof that somebody's done something, they'll use circular conversations to spin you up and make you feel crazy and get you to kind of give up. And what they do is they will give you 100 different scenarios of how that could have happened, even if you're sitting there with proof in your hands of saying, this is what happened, here's the proof. And they'll give you 15 different scenarios that have no basis in fact, and then talk you into circular conversation and then hit you with that attrition, which means to wear you down until you just kind of give up. In the end, you're going to feel crazy. You'll hit the crazy making card, and you'll be the one that looks insane. And this is this is common. So, for example, if you look at the way the media rolls right now, they will take a topic that's been disproven, and everybody will run with the exact same topic, and they'll say the same thing over and over again. And so, even if you say to them, "But we've proven that's not true," they'll just say it again. They'll just say it again. And then they'll give or they may give a bunch of weird out of the blue, reasons for how that could have alternatively been, but it's all just made up. It's all just crap. Now with plausible deniability, a lot of times they can also set up a patsy, or they'll withhold information so you can never quite get to the bottom of it, so that there's always that well, we don't have enough information to make a determination on what's going on. In which case they have an out because it's not completely known, right? So, I mean, if you took the Vegas shooting, they give us a line of crap, everybody has a different story. You know, the people that were there are telling something completely different, with the sheriff standing up there, oh no, this is what happened. And then everyone toes that same line, and if you go listen to the news, everybody's towing the same line. Everybody's saying, no, it was one shooter, but all the data supports something else, but they keep saying the same thing, and because we can't get any of the information as to what really happened, because they've hidden it all, bam, plausible deniability. And you can never prove it, right? Until you get the actual data, it's just an us versus them, his opinion versus mine, and there you go. And there's your plausible deniability. But that card is big. That's a big one. It's right up there with shame, guilt. It's just utilized so often because these guys can never be wrong, and in their world, they never are wrong. Ever. Because they really just see themselves as gods, as above us. We're useful appliances. We might as well be silverware. And anybody that thinks that they're aligned with these people has a really bad day coming, because they will chew up, spit out anybody, however it sees fit for the group. And if you're saying to yourself, that could never happen, here's why it can and how it will happen. This is a hive-minded layout. What suits the whole supersedes what suits the individual. So all these individuals that have signed up for this are basically saying to the group, my life is forfeit, my individuality is forfeit, the only thing that matters is the whole. And, you know, if it was for the benefit of society, that might not be such a terrible thing, but it's not. It's for the benefit of a very toxic, vampiric mentality, a very sick mentality. There's this weird group that's been, doing all this research. They call like these QAnons, and they say it's this military intelligence, and that's fine. And one group thinks it's some kind of AI bot, and that's fine. And I've looked at all the sides of it, and I always think it's really interesting because one of the continuous things that keeps getting posted is these people are sick, and everybody thinks of it like, you know, they're jerks and they're horrible people. But to me, when I see that, I think to myself, they truly are sick. There really is something happening. There really is something going on. There actually is there is a real sickness. And I don't know what causes it or what's propelling this. But it is actually almost like a true sickness. Okay. So, weaponized hope. This kind of goes up there with empathy cultivation. It's just a little bit strategically different because it can whip up the hope of one group and then use it against another group on the world setting. And there's a lot of promises that are made to boot with that. So you have promises that are made that are never achieved, but they just keep promising, and the people are like, okay. And if they word it with it, and so if they just stick another face on it, the people think, oh, well, that guy lied to me, but this guy, he's saying he can get it done. Okay, that's great. But it never really plays out, right? So they keep getting you to do what they want, but they never, it's a carrot on a stick event. But with the weaponized hope, they're using your weakness against you to get you to do things that are not in your best interest. It's ultimately going to result in your harm. Why? Because you're a useful appliance. They could care less. You're a useful idiot, right? So, for weaponized hope, they can whip up the hope and frenzy of other people. So I say, oh, we can make all the problems go away if, people just give up this right or that right. And so the people that have been victims of whatever that issue is, for them, there's hope at the end of the tunnel if they just do this, that, or the other thing, or they just give up this right or that right, or give up this thing or that thing. there's hope at the end of the tunnel, because they've probably sustained a loss, or they have some horse in that race. So the parent that has a kid in the schools, or the doctor that has a family member with cancer, or knows somebody, right? So it goes on and on. If you just take this nanotech chip and put it in your body, all your problems will go away. I mean, I'm just making stuff up at this point. I mean, I'm sure that exists, but actually I know it exists because Stanford's working on it. Anyway, so bottom line is, I'm just saying, because they play on our hopes and our emotions, we throw all logical thought and all of our critical thinking out the window because we're reacting and behaving emotionally. I don't know anybody who hasn't said knee-jerk reaction. Like, I know most people have used that phrase, and that's basically what they need from us. But they can weaponize hope within communities against one another, and they can weaponize hope where it's you're actually, the things you're hoping for are something that they're using that to have it blow up in your face. So if you give up your freedoms and you're freedomless, now you're so at their mercy. It's not funny, right? And they're not nice people. They're not nice people, okay? These are not nice people, okay? They don't care about you. You're looking at them, they're telling you and they're reading they have amazing body language, guys. They've mastered the art of mimicry. They can look at you and you will sense and see how absolutely heartfelt they seem, and they care about people. But now go look at what they're doing in the real world. Go look at their real actions, and you will see truthfully how much they give a crap. Who are they serving, really? Themselves? What have they actually done? And those actions they've taken, how have those actually panned out? Not all these people are evil. Not everybody has mind virus. A lot of these people, I mean, you're going to have a blend of the people that are really sick, and then the people that are totally convinced that they're doing the right thing. Sorry. So, it's really, frustrating. It's really frustrating. And really what we're talking about here is abuse of the highest level. It's an abuse of trust that it's just unfathomable. Because when we see their faces and we see how they've mimicked the art of expression, they don't have those kinds of feelings. The love, the joy, it's not there. And I've spent time talking to people like this, and it's not there. They don't feel on that end of the spectrum, okay? They simply don't. They really don't. And it's impossible to think that's possible. That's a tricky one, right? It's impossible to think that that's possible because they're so insanely convincing, and their faces show all of the things that you would be looking for, the effect, But a lot of it's what do we expect to see? Your brain is filling in a lot of gaps, and partially it's filling in those gaps based on emotion. So I'm going to give you kind of a brief example. So I knew somebody that my whole life I thought, and when they would cry, I really thought I always would buckle emotionally. I would buckle and kind of give in because I felt like, oh, they're finally understanding where I'm coming from. Are they? The more educated I became on this stuff, the more I learned the art of dropping out and of just observing without my mind filling in the blanks of what I should be seeing. And so this person that I'd known for a decade who none of their actions lined up with what they would say. It was very confusing. And they cried, but for the first time ever, I realized how fake it was. And that's because I kind of did a test. I put in something super emotional. I said, can you look at this? And it was heart-wrenching. There's not a person I know that has an emotional bone in their body that would have made it through that video without crying like a baby. And they did the mimicry and they cried. And that triggered my emotional response. But when you take your emotions out of the picture and just literally drop out and like just look at it like it's a painting on a wall, just observe them. Is it as sincere as you thought it was, or was it what you wanted to see? And you may see a totally different person when you do that. So, you know, as you listen to watching these people, it's like start watching them a little more carefully. Stop listening to what they're saying. Just start observing their motions. Start looking at their body language. Just look at it. Don't read into it. Don't see what you want to see. You're not these people. You're not identified as these people. You being wrong about these people doesn't make you a bad person. They're actually quite gifted at this. And they've been around for a really long time. Okay? They're masters at this craft. And politicians are like the utmost masters at this craft. So there's no shame in having been wrong about these people, but it does rock the foundation of everything that you thought when it comes to having good judgment. And I think that's what scares people the most. It's not so much that I was wrong about this person. It's, wow, I was wrong about all these people. And wow, how can I trust myself ever again? That's the stuff people don't want to face. It's not being wrong about somebody. That's not where the cognitive dissonance kicks in. It kicks in because if we were that wrong about that many people, then what does that mean? What does that say about us? And what else could we have been wrong about? And is our life a lie? Is our judgment to be trusted ever again? See, this is the kind of earthquake, earth-shaking, foundation-cracking kind of events. And that's part of what I'm here to tell you. There is nothing to be ashamed of here. These people are masters at this. They have a very good, very complicated, and that's why you're seeing how complicated it is, web that fools the most trained. Okay, so the same person, right? Had a trained investigator kind of person, right? Fooled also. So you can have somebody that's completely trained in this that doesn't know either. Had no clue. Had them fooled too. So here's a person that went through probably extraordinary amounts of classes and training for this kind of thing. I'm not completely convinced that, given how much power they have, that they would ever properly train somebody to find people like them. But so if they can fool people that were trained to not be fooled, do you see what I'm saying? Look, the immunity is in just looking at it as what it is, and to really just observe them, without filling in the emotional gaps of what you think they're feeling. Stop thinking for them. Stop feeling for them, because that's basically what we're doing. We're feeling for them. So just, you got to observe them and what their actions are. And that's how you avoid having your hope weaponized against you and being tricked, because they could be saying all the right things, but you got to look at their actual track record and just observe them when they don't know they're being observed. That's the best time. That's the best time. Look at all the weird pictures, right? Like, look at all the stuff that, you know, not when they're on the stage, not when they're giving their little speech. They got their best masks on for that. Watch them when they're in the crowd. Watch them when they're not being watched, when they don't think they're in the spotlight. What are they doing then? Are they glaring at people? Do they have a dead look in their eyes? I mean, do they have that dead look? Because here's the thing, they get this dead look. Like it's just this, like, I can't tell you. It's like their eyes stop shining. And they look super creepy. I've told people that before. It's like, if you're never sure, if you're not sure, just watch them when they don't know that you're watching them, and get a read on them then when they don't have their mimic mask on. I would encourage people. It's like all these people that you think you're just not sure about them, go see if you can find video footage or anything where they're in the background. They're not in the spotlight. They're not putting on their best show. What are they doing? How are they behaving? Is it like the look of death? They look like want to kill somebody? I mean, do they look pissed off? I mean, and be fair about it. What was the topic? If they're listening to speeches or whatever. Be as fair as you can, but observe them in their natural habitat. They enjoy doing that to us, it seems. So, how to not be a victim, right? How to not be a victim, 101. Here's where we are. Okay. Draining of resources. And resources has so many meanings. This is another card. So, draining of resources. This is another tactic. They wear you down. They wear you down. They're not just draining your money. Everybody would think that first, right? It's just draining my money. They're draining your energy. They're also draining your intellectual property. That's the big one, by the way, because these people, they aren't very creative. I don't even think they're creative at all. They're really good at using things that have been created or devised before. They have engaged themselves into a number, so many facilities, so many science locations, so many think tanks. So they get these groups that get they used to call it a brain drain. And they brain drain because they're not creative. Once they have a concept, then they could put that to some terrible use, but they're sure as hell not using it for your benefit. I guarantee it. If you want proof of that, go out, walk around your nearest city. The cities they haven't been fixed or repaired in I don't know how long. They're thrashed. Patents are being stolen. There's been reports of people that had a patent or were getting a patent, and then there were nefarious groups that said, give it to me or I'll kill you. Some people did, some people didn't, and they were killed. So there was a lot of people that had ideas or patents that or were getting in the process of getting patents, and they were offed for their patents, and then those were used. Some people, like anybody that has an energy idea that's free energy, tons of cancer cures, tons of other things. If it's not beneficial for their hive mind, they don't do it. It won't make it anywhere. I listened to a guy who used an electrical process for healing people, tons of issues, using an electrical method to repair the blood. 30 years of, he had probably documentation taller than he was of how much success he'd had, and 30 years of trying to get the patents through, and nothing. And he finally gave his ideas away to the public, and I think he died, and he still didn't, he never got anywhere with it. So it's horrible. There's a whole video on that, and he's not alone. So you might be able to poo-poo one person, but where there's a huge trend, you got a huge problem. So they brain drain, and they resource drain. So they're sucking out your energy, they're sucking out your finances. Half the time they create that just so they can get your energy and your ideas. So a lot of the monetary systems, really, it's just about keeping you as a slave to keep you doing labor, but it's just a giant open jail cell. You just can't tell. So you're doing all the work, they're getting all the benefits, and they control the currencies, and they suck out all the ideas through the institutions, and then they set up the schools so that they're trained in a certain way of thinking, and they kind of took out critical thinking, which is unfortunate because that also cuts back on the creativity. And people don't question. They have, they may have good ideas, but they're going to come up with ideas based on what they're told is going on, instead of asking questions and saying, hang on, something about that doesn't seem right. So they may be solving for X, but they're not solving for the real X. So draining of resources, obviously that can be, global resources, it can be mineral resources, it's endless, right? Endless. But that's a real common thing, and part of, for the obvious reason that I think that they are seriously deficient or lacking in certain things, like the ability to be creative, because they're not really connected to spirit, and a lot of really creative and beautiful things are spontaneous. They've made sure to kind of put the kibosh on art. Art's become a bit defiled in our society, or it's kind of smushed, right? Writing has been controlled also. A lot of the methods for writing, it's become very technical. It needs to be a certain way, a certain format. Nobody will even consider your work unless it's falling into these parameters. It's all very, just takes the spirit right out of stuff like that. So, draining of resources in a large part, it wears you down. It's another method to wear you down. It also makes you dependent, and that's a really big important thing. So, these are the empiric type people. Resources can be people. It can be people down to the human trafficking level of people, okay? But they will wear you down, and again, you're just a thing. You're just a useful appliance, so they don't care. If they could switch you out with robots tomorrow, they'd do it without thinking about it. It'd be less complicated for them, because they think like robots anyway. It would be easier to get along with a robot for these people than it would an emotional, but they're not going to get the energetic charge that they're getting by sending you through the roof, up and down on the emotional scale, on an empathy roller coaster ride. Okay. But draining of resources is in large part, or at least one big part component, is to keep you under their thumb. A person in a relationship that, and because they control a lot of your situations through these other methods. So a person that may live with a narcissist, let's say, may not have a job. They've been put into a situation where they're dependent wholly and completely on the narcissist, and the narcissist loves to lord over them with, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. It gives them a huge high to put the person and keep the person in a state of fear like that. Well, what if I leave you? You'll be jobless. How are you going to feed yourself? What are you going to do? I think that's probably partially why we have a lot of women's shelters and stuff like that, because those people are in situations they can't get out of. They may not have a work history to get a job. They may not be able to get a job to be able to look like they can even go to work. They may not have a car. Because they've been so controlled and made so dependent, and then bam, here you have Venezuela, right? They gave all their power away to the government. The government said, pull the plug. That's the really short, boiled down version. And, what government would love to have that kind of wielded power? Oh, this city doesn't like us. That's fine. We'll just cut off everything for them. They'll just starve to death in the streets. Who cares? My government would never do that. It cares about me. Not the people that are in charge right now. They don't. The people that are in charge are not the people that you think are in charge, by the way. They're never at the top level. They're one level down, or many, many levels down, and the deeper you go, the more control they have. It's all very compartmentalized too. So those groups don't always know who's got control over things either. And that's another form of control. And again, there's your isolation, right? So draining of resources is a pretty big deal, because it gives them, you're giving them once again the power over you, and they run the systems. And a monetary system is obviously easiest. So that's the easiest one to point out. Everybody would point at that, but a lot of people wouldn't think about all the intellectual brain drain that's been going on, or the fact that the patent office really isn't ours. Didn't know that, did ya? Or that it's completely, or that all these systems are basically stealing people's information, ideas, and stuff, and filtering them off to somewhere we don't know. The number one problem with narcissism is that people think that everybody thinks the way they do, and everybody, the empath always assumes that there's good in the world, right? But for the most part, people try and do the right thing. Right? Who's not guilty of that? But we need to be realistic. There are plenty of people in the world that have no interest in doing any good in the world, that are just here to be lords and kings and gods. Wait for the new technical gods to roll out. I hate to inform them that really the computer systems aren't as smart as they think they are. And if they are, then they sure fooled me. And part of that's because these people that have created them, they're not very creative. They're not very smart. They're not big thinking. They think they're big thinking. But how do you think big when you are compartmentalized? And you've dumbed down all the people that were filtering in information to you that you were brain draining. So complicated. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Okay, what do we have on the list here? Brain draining. Reflection and mimicking. Oh, I talked a lot about that already, right? Reflection and mimicking. They're watching your body language. So we talked about mimicking. It's really just about them learning, how to posture themselves, how to fake a cry, how to. But part of that now you have to realize is they're reading you. Like on an individual level, if it was just you and them, they're literally gonna analyze your entire body language. They really are. Some of them have said that they literally can find their victim the minute they walk in the room. They'll scan the room and they'll know exactly who their victim is. That's how good they are at it, okay? And then they will do this mimicking thing where they're mirroring you. Now, if you were to sit down, okay, if I made this like as super simple as possible to understand, if you were going on a date with somebody and you were saying, oh, and keep in mind, they've researched you, right? So they already know everything there is. I mean, they know a lot about you. If they're going to your city, they know what your city needs and what it wants to hear, right? They know what you want to hear. But if you're sitting at a dinner table with one of these people, what they'll do is they'll like everything you like. They're going to mimic you, and they're going to move to the body language. Now, here's what's interesting about that. NLP, okay, what NLP does, and it's just one facet of NLP. That this is it can be very complicated. But with NLP, a good chunk of NLP, the goal is to mirror and mimic a person. If they lean in, you lean in. If they move left, you move left. If you lean back, you lean back. You're just mirroring them, right? You're trying to breathe the same way they are. You're using the same, kind of matching them. It's just one aspect of NLP. But it's fascinating because the mimicking effect, that's totally what these guys do. So if you're sitting in it, if you're looking for them to have a unique opinion or, challenge you, don't, but because everybody has this convoluted concept, they're looking for their soulmate. So they want somebody like them. So where's the critical thinking? Where's that, the challenge? Or maybe that's the twin flame I'm thinking of. So absurd. Now, I'm a pretty spiritual person, so I'm telling you, that whole thing is nonsense. We have a lot of spiritual groups that are like, come on, there's twin flames. You can find your soulmate. You are your soulmate. There you go. I just ruined it for everybody. You're your own soulmate. You're your own twin flame. All those aspects of yourself that need to be healed. There you go. I just took away the mystery. So sorry. Anyway, so so the reflection and mimicking, that's what they do. If they're going to your city, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. Oh, your bridge collapsed. You actually listen to what Trump did that just the other day too. Because I'm going to be totally fair. I'm going to look at both sides. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't care what political party I'm as far as I'm concerned. I'm just the wall. I'm observing, right? That's where I'm at. This is what I see. He just did the other. It was in Michigan. We're gonna build that. Was it a levee or something? I got it wrong. Can't think of the name of it right now. But the people needed it. Interestingly enough, if you look at his pattern, though, usually his actions are aligning with his words. So that is interesting, right? Where would that put him on the list? Because everybody's so convinced that he was a narcissist. I was like, we'll see. I just sit back. You got to observe it. It's not that easy. It can take me up to like a year to 2 years to try and really clearly get it right. Say, okay, this person's probably in that bucket, or it's kind of in that level of, what is it? Those people are sick. These people are sick. That level of mind virus. I do think there's kind of levels to it, though. There's some people that have aspects of it. I could just generalize and say this low no empathy bracket. But yeah, no, normally these people don't do what they say. Let me correct myself. Those people they just almost never do what they say. Okay. On occasion they'll do it just because they want to prove they did something they said. Because that's usually when they're trying to hoover you, or when they're trying to love bomb you. And they're like, oh, look, I do what I said I do. Look how awesome I am. I think if you were to look at the politicians, probably the way it works is right before voting time, then they try and do some things they said they were going to do. So they can say, look, I kept my word on these 3 things. On the other 57, I didn't do anything. Or did the opposite of what you wanted. So, reflection and mimicking, and then there's reading of body language. These are not quite the same tactics, but they're really close. Reading body language, what they're looking for is people that are weak. They're looking for people that are low self-esteem. Those are their number one targets. They're usually trying to figure out how they can get under someone's skin. People that have no fear are the last people they're going towards. They hate the people that have no fear. Those are dangerous. They're not going to get very far. They have high self-esteem. They believe in themselves. They're harder to get under their skin. They go for the weak spots. They always go for weak spots first. So if they were reading your body language, somebody with their shoulders down and their head kind of slid, just the way they're holding themselves, you become an immediate target for these people. If you're a group that's been subjugated by them, usually because they create their own problems. So it's a problem reaction solution, right? But except for they create the problem, they incite the reaction, and then they offer you the solution, which is never good for you, usually. So, reading the body language, you could also consider reading the body language, almost kind of like doing polls, getting a pulse. They always say we're trying to get a pulse on the whatever group. They're trying to get a read on where people are at. You could consider that part of researching, but at the same time, in a way, it's not, because they're really just trying to get where are people at emotionally. Some of these psychological tests and stuff that they were running, part of that. It all kind of can be condensed down into research. But there's a certain amount of, they're reading your behaviors, and then they want to mimic it back at you so that they can convince you that they're something they're not. Bottom line. Just remember, the ultimate goal for them is to be able at any time to be able to lay down that plausible deniability card and get you to say, don't believe your eyes. Just hear what I'm saying. That's ultimately their goal. They do seem kind of psychic. They've already kind of done their homework about you, and because their very survival depends on being able to read and control you. It's so instinctive for them. I could give you kind of example, and empaths are very much the same way. So you know a lot of people that like are really emotionally connected, and a lot of them say, I'm really empathic, right? I'm almost psychic. I mean, if you get into the spiritual groups, they're going to tell you, oh, I'm so empathic, I'm so connected, and I'm, I have like these psychic abilities, and I'm not trying to mock them or knock them, but here's a lot of how that played out. And I'm generalizing, but I think you'd be surprised how much this is true. Because all throughout our life, typically, there's usually some kind of a narcissist running around. And in a lot of cases, there's usually, because this is such a magnetic situation, you have these pairings of people that are incomplete. Our society's perpetuated this in large part because these people have been in control for I don't know how long. Because it's in their nature to want power and to rise up. And then, they, of course, also that nature, they're in fear and they need to control. And so there's this deficiency that's been created, and people are just full of holes. They've never been taught how to deal with their emotions in a healthy way. They have all these traumas rolling around. They're just kind of, they're a powder keg of emotions, and it's so easy for these people to puppet string people on their emotions. So everybody's just kind of an emotional mess because they've never learned how to properly process these emotions. They're just ready for the picking, okay, emotionally. If energetic vampirism is what these people are about, then they've done a masterful job at making sure that at any time they can hit anybody in that sore spot and get those people to react to get the energy that they're looking for with a myriad of, as you're seeing right now, techniques to do it. And they can corral and can get people to go walk off the cliff and thank them on their way down. That's how convincing they are. That's why you shouldn't kick yourself once this stuff starts to become clear for you. They're master illusionists. They're master hypnotists. You literally would just walk to your doom and thank them on their way out. So they do seem psychic. But on the other side, like I said, the emotional groups, those empaths, the people that are, I'm so connected that I can read you, I can sense you, and they have that too. But anyway, so like I was saying, a lot of those people grew up with someone in their family that falls into this category. And it could be some kind of diabolical big picture thing that's been infiltrated, or it could just be a natural law of you have two different magnetic types of people, which is what the human magnet syndrome talks about a lot, that tend to kind of connect because it works. It works in the worst way, but it does kind of work because one wants power and the other one wants to give it away. And so you grow up under that, you grow up subjugated. And so if you have that, and they've become masters at breaking up family. So if you have that one parent that's always like on their wit's end, or even the parent that's like a normal person but is so stressed out, let's say financially, or their life is hard, the kid's survival depends on the parent being okay. They do, like from the beginning when you're little, like you need your parents. And so we become hyper and acutely aware of the parent the minute they walk in the door. Our okayness depends on that parent being okay. This is normal for kids, by the way. It's like they're always checking in on you. Like, is my parent okay? Is my parent not okay? If you have an alcoholic parent, God help you then. Then you're going to be even more hyper intense, right? I'm super acutely aware of what they're doing, or what they're, what mood are they in today? Am I okay if you have a bipolar parent or parent with depression? This is kind of widespread. Mental health issues are such a huge deal. Now you'll have to think of like, how does that impact the kid? Again, I'm not a psychologist. I can just tell you because I've had that experience myself. You become really sensitive because your survival depended on it. You've adapted. You've become hyper aware of how people feel because when you were a kid, your okayness really depended on your parent being okay. And these days, parents aren't okay. Parents are really not okay these days. They're stressed out, whether it's money, whether it's the frequencies hitting, whether it's the health issues, whether it's, I mean, they've created so many problems across the globe. I mean, and then you have the programming that's coming in through the televisions that's just designed to stress people out and sell the same narrative. So it's like, don't believe your eyes, just hear what I'm saying, and then it's just more brainwashing. So there's literally at this point, it's so unhealthy that no matter, even a healthy family is going to struggle. Okay, even healthy individuals in this environment would struggle, and parents do their damn best. So that means that the empath has that gift also, but theirs was a matter of survival too. But these are two different spectrums of survival. The empath developed that ability to read people, but they feel, okay? This mind virus type person and these low no empathy people, they can't feel a damn thing. They only care about themselves, and their only way to get what they need or what they need to survive. Maybe they grew up on the streets, maybe they were abused, maybe, but they didn't choose to like try and cater. They chose how to like make it on their own, survive. Other was a dangerous thing. The only thing that mattered was them. They shut off. They shut down. Again, I'm not a psychologist. This is just kind of what I'm seeing in this trends, just from looking at, in all this research and all of the things that I've seen and then the people that I've talked to. And you talk to them and like, what was your background? What was your history? It's a lot the same. One parent that's just kind of off their rocker, and the other parent that's, that's loving and sweet. They tend to go they would pick one direction or another. And then they'll marry somebody who's just like like the abuser. It's very weird. Because that's their natural match now. And go look at the human magnet syndrome, because he does have all the degrees that you need to explain all that properly and give you all the nice technical mumbo jumbo jargon. His book's pretty good. And don't ask me the name right now because I'm blanking on his name. So there is that. They can seem psychic. It's just, and so can we on the emotional scale, when you have those two extremes. But the reasoning for those two extremes is very different. They're doing it through those methods I just talked about, with the mimicking and the body language and researching you. Some go so crazy. Some are so on the crazy scale, like they'll actually keep like a black book and keep notes about people. About the different people and the different, if they're like one of those guys, it's like dating multiple women and nobody knows about it. They keep it just to keep it all straight. And like I said, they research you on the world scale. Obviously, what would we have? Like a bazillion different computer programs. The whole thing's out of control. They're just sucking in data from everywhere. Now they're adding AI to the mix just to make this, even more dominant for them. I can't even get into the technical stuff because it is so overwhelming. And the topics we're covering right now are so overwhelming that for me, if that is a whole doozy in itself. So I'm just going to kind of say they're using systems at levels that you couldn't begin to understand or begin to imagine to research you. All the way to the point of reading your mind. It's not that outrageous, because really our brains do operate like a radio. So then, let's see. Yeah, so social media weaponization, obviously. It's for all the reasons I've been listing above. It just works for any of these things that they're trying to do. All the things I've listed already in this video and the one before it, you can use any kind of computer network to obtain any one of these outcomes, because really, social interaction in the world, it's just harder to do that. But they've, versus like in a computer electronic environment, it's easy to couple groups into sections or put them in different categories. That's easy. It's much harder to create Harlems and to create Comptons and to create Oaklands where you've literally gotten different groups of different factions, created these different factions of different groups. So you've already put them into these people are, it's like trying to get these people to be all, migrated into one another. I mean, for one thing, there's something to be said about honoring the cultures. Do like to, be within their own cultures, and they should have that right. They should have that right, but they should also be able, it should be easy for them if they want to, be more involved with other different groups. That's fine too. But a lot of this stuff you have to realize is this was done on purpose. In those groups, I mean, our own government will walk drugs into certain communities. They've dropped boxes of guns off in like Chicago. There was like actual military grade firearms boxes were dropped in the middle of Chicago. And reports that it was the drug cartel people saying, hey, listen, they brought them in. They wanted to create this. It gets very complicated as to why, and I can, all that'll hear, but, it creates these groups, and it fits their narratives, and they enjoy watching dogfights, and they say they care about one group or another group. They don't care about anybody. Just forget about it. There's no group they care about. They have this weird collective hive mind that any one of the people in that hive mind, they would sacrifice them tomorrow if it meant, keeping going forward in this direction. These people really are sick. They're actually sick. Okay. So rage. Sometimes it's faux rage, right? Fake rage. But inside they're always raging. A lot of the time, they remember on that kind of lower end spectrum. And so, everything from like, they can go from sad to like detesting, fear, hate, rage, blah, blah, blah. Just take everything in that lower end spectrum on the red end of the spectrum and just slide it up slowly and stop at the point of giving a crap. They don't. So all that, the lower end spectrum, that seems to be where they reside. And they can mimic everything, all that I give a crap, touchy-feely stuff all day, and you wouldn't know the difference unless you were neutrally observing them. Why they use rage? They use rage. Remember, they need to have plausible deniability. Now, obviously there's the point on the spectrum where you've moved beyond the low no empathy zone, and you've moved into the total psychopath bracket where you enjoy inflicting actual pain and harm on people in ways that can't even be described. Okay, that's like, there you go. And I'll leave it there because it's so beyond you can't even fathom the end of that spectrum. I'm sure I don't even know the end of that spectrum, and I don't really care to. But in a public setting, what they'll do is they'll express outrage, or they'll threaten. And a lot of times they'll threaten, and they may even inflict some pain, but they don't usually go over the top, at least not without having plausible deniability or without using a minion. So in this case, like we were having, so gangs were being used to do crimes, okay? So that they can't, they're saying, well, it had nothing to do with me. And then at any time they want to, right, useful idiot, they can point to that group and say, these are the culprits. If it gets too close to their back door where they can have the finger pointed at them that they had the culpability to be involved with that, they can cut that. They're expendable because they're in that hive mind. So, it's just one small extension. Who cares? I'll just grow another arm back, right? Don't care. It doesn't matter. So those people think that they matter. They think they have power. They think that they're involved with these super powerful people, and like somehow that gives them authority and power. And I hate to tell them that they're just cannon fodder. They're just a useful idiot. That's all they are. They may have power at the moment, but they're easily expendable. Their lives are immediately forfeit the minute they sign up for that. Some of them know it. Some of them don't. Some may think that they're fighting a fight that has some kind of value to it because they've been, and it just depends on who the person is and what makes them tick, and they'll know exactly what to say to that person to get them to sign up. So yeah, you're going to have a blend of people that really think they were doing the right thing, and they're going to be absolutely devastated. And there's other people that know exactly what they're doing. But again, they're all compartmentalized, so nobody really knows. So when it comes to rage in a social setting, And this will roll into intimidation. In a social setting, rage could look like, I guess, war strikes, stuff like that, or threats of war. Usually, again, with rage, the people that are really behind that, they're going to have plausible deniability. They'll use minions, or they'll, use weapons. Drones was a big deal too. It's like, here, we don't even have to take any harm, right? We're just going to send something in there that can kill you. I mean, that, the newer threat was like, I think, robots and stuff. It's like, well, workers, if you don't like it, we'll just replace you. Oh, but that's okay because, you won't have to work anymore. It'll all be taken care of for you. If I don't have to work anymore, then what good am I to these people? Because I'm a useful appliance. So that means I'll just be what? What will I be? They won't give a crap. Trust me. You can just go walk out of the forest and die. We'll figure it out. So believing that these people care, that's like, just scrap it. They don't. So yeah, rage and intimidation on the social settings, those two things would almost go hand in hand. In a relationship, that setting, what it would look like is the person will rage against you just to get you back into conformance. They want you to think that at any time they could completely kill you. I mean, we were under the notion that literally they were everywhere, right? Whoever they was, like, they seems to be the number one thing that everybody says. Oh, they. Well, who the hell is they? Well, they operate from the shadows. Well, who's they? It's like, oh my gosh, they're everywhere. Oh my gosh, they. Who is they? They've created this shroud of people believe that they're everywhere. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if it wasn't, maybe 10, 20,000 people, maybe 100,000 people tops that are involved in this. And it's all compartmentalized. So if you could probably take a percentage of those people and they'd have no idea what exactly it is they've been up to in the big picture of things. And the ones that wake up, those people, they'll be silenced for sure. But see, you can't really have that many people in the mix without it starting to get loose and dangerous, because you're having to pay those people too. So in some ways, the rage and it's really that rage into intimidation of, it's that threat. So in a relationship, it's like the guy that comes up and he might strike you, but he won't leave a mark. Or if he does leave a mark, it won't be in a place where people can see it. And if you say anything, he'll kill you. And they'll never find you. You won't be missed because they've isolated you anyway, right? So a lot of the people, what they'll do first, and I've actually heard of this one, they'll take somebody that had a really big voice and they'll find ways to get them out of the limelight before they do them in. Because they can't have martyrs. They can't give any credibility to what the person was saying. So there's somebody that's really outspoken. The first thing they want to do is try and silence their voice, and then they'll worry. Then they may off you. And even if they had you off, they'd hire somebody to do it. That it would take a force of researchers to try and figure out how that person's connected back to you, right? I knew a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. Crazy. So yeah, on the world scene, rage and intimidation, I'm sure everybody probably has seen it. If you don't agree with my side of things, then bam, we'll hit you with character assassination, or we're going to make it so, or we're going to stick the IRS after you, because that was a thing. And on and on and on. Projection. I think we've covered projection, but let's just cover it again. Projection is, at this point, anybody that's kind of awake or paying attention has probably heard the term projection at least 50 times. Projection is basically, it's part of the art of crazy making. Part of it might be legitimate. It's hard to tell which, where inside there's this self-hatred. They call themselves gods. They think they're amazing. But there's also some kind of a self-hate. But what they're seeing is you, and they hate you. But really, it's a projection of what they're seeing inside of themselves. So they hate us, but really they hate themselves. And it works both ways. So we see them and, all the stuff that they're creating fear in us. And I don't know how to explain this properly. They create in us reactions to emotions. So they're projecting off of us things that they've actually done. We're projecting off of them emotions that they're using that we already have. So if we had some kind of an experience or trauma, they know how to make us cringe, or they know how to get us to stop fighting with them, or they know how to get us to say yes to whatever they want to do, or they know how to get us to fall in line based on pain or trauma or things that we've been through. They know our history, they know about us, they spent time with us, they spent the first year being nice to us, and now they know exactly how to crush us. You get to know your enemy and then you crush it, right? And they see us as the enemy, but they don't realize that projecting off is them, and they hate themselves. So it's always been curious to me as to whether they, if you listen to H.G. Tudor, they know exactly what they're doing. It's all very intentional, but I wonder at the people that are kind of in the lower level bracket, they're projecting everything that they do onto you. So like my ex was like, oh, you're cheating on me. It's like, okay, does that mean you're actually cheating on me? What does that mean, right? It's the fears they're chasing, and it makes you wonder. Now, at the higher levels, they know what they're doing. So to make things as convoluted as possible, they'll blame you for doing what they've done, because now it just confuses the hell out of people. And that gives them that whole plausible deniability. Well, you're the one who's colluding with blah, but it was really me. Or you're the one that, or you're a person that harms kids. It was me. It's actually me. So it's all literally the projecting off of you what they are, or off of other people what those people are. They're blaming others for what it is they're doing. What really motivates them to do that is hard for me to say. I haven't been able to figure that out. I wish I could give you a solid answer. I can tell you that the people that are narcissists that have come out and written books and stuff, they're very clear that they know what they're doing on that, and that it's funny, and some of the people that if you go back and look at some of the Rules for Radicals type stuff, Saul Alinsky, I think he had a whole thing on this. It's like, blame others for what you do. It's very deliberate, right? That's in the rule book for some of the people that follow that line of thinking. I think that's a pretty popular guy, There's another book, and I can't think of the name of it. It's something very popular in the business world. If I can find the name of that book later, I'll come back and say what it is. But it was a super popular book. It was like the 38 Laws of something. And then 40 Cent did another book on top of that. Something about, how to basically be successful in business. And it's ruthless. It's a lot of these same techniques. Just so we're clear. So it's another one. Projection's pretty easy. The only problem with projection is you got to figure out which one it is. So, okay, you ever seen those movies where they're able to clone themselves? So then it's like, you're fighting two of them, and it's the same guy. So it's like we'll say an illusionist person creates another one of themselves, and now you have to figure out which one it is. It's kind of like that. You're looking at both of them, and you're like, I have to figure out which one of these people is the real person. It's kind of like that. Because now they've created this situation where you don't know which one of them has done the actual crime, or which one of them is actually the one who's done what's being said. And that leads into crazy making, which we've talked about a lot. So crazy making is really just the art of making you look like the insane one. And they can use any one of these cool little abilities that I've listed here, any one of these cards that gets played, anyone and all of them to engage you into crazy making, and to engage you with crazy making, to make you crazy. Why? Because it goes with character assassination and triangulation and minions. It's used to make you look like, if you lose it emotionally, not only do they get amazing amounts of fuel out of you and lots of energy, they get an endless amount of ability to destroy all your credibility. And thus, by having you be discredited, that somehow by default gives them credibility, even when there's no basis in fact. So they will use any one of these tactics to make you completely crazy, whether they're draining your resources, whether they're, using your past against you, whether they have other people coming out of nowhere at you. And by the way, that is called targeted individuals. So they have groups and clans. The people that are being basically paid, they'll have people that they'll have sit out front of your house, or they'll pay to have somebody move in next to you. And yes, it does get this crazy. It depends on who the target is and if they're worth that kind of investment. But if they need someone discredited, let's say somebody has, quite a bit of, could be an actual real threat to them. If they identify them as a threat, then they will put the resources and the money into making sure that person ends up discredited by their own doing, by making them seem like they're insane. And then the next step is to somehow find a way to get them into the psychological world with people that they have specifically that they can get to go the next step of discrediting you psychologically. So they can make you, if you're saying I'm being followed, somebody is, I've had like 6 different people, or the same guy keeps showing up at my house, but you can't prove it, and there's no, it's true, and they know, of course they know it's true. They're paying for these people, but you can't prove it, and a lot of the time you don't know what group or organization they're with. And I'll tell you what, there's a good chance that those people don't know what group or organization they're with, or where the data is really going, or what the real purpose is. In fact, those groups may be thinking that they're looking into something that's quite legitimate, and in fact, they're doing the bidding of somebody that's actually just trying to do crazy making on someone, to make that person snap, or to make that person paranoid, or to make that person freak out or be in a fear state, so that they then will go seek help, and then that would end up getting, they'll end up in the wrong person's hands through a series of events, and that person will. That's how some of the MK Ultra stuff was done, and there's actually been proof of that. We had a guy he actually got caught because they recorded him. I don't know if it was an accident or not. There was a recording of there was a psychologist out here in Portland. And that guy, he got caught on recording doing like an MK Ultra program on somebody that was coming forward to say that there was some illegal doings going on with I guess it was like an insider trading type situation. So that's just another way, so that they'll arrange it so that if there's somebody that's a threat, they find ways to get you in with the wrong kind of psychological person, or so that they can get you back under control. It really is that bad. And when you have this kind of surveillance system and this much control over data and this much information, it's pretty easy for them to kind of root out keywords or figure out who they need to keep an eye on. Outspoken people are kind of the hardest to deal with, because if those people just up and disappear, and they have to be pretty desperate to go to that length, because it gives some credibility to what the person's been saying. They can't have that because they need plausible deniability. So let's see what I got left here. So many tactics. It's brutal. So gaslighting is really the art of gaslighting is a little bit tricky. Gaslighting is kind of the art of getting somebody pissed off. It comes right before crazy making. It would be like me saying you assaulted me, and me saying, knowing that never happened, but I keep saying it, and you're just like, I didn't do that. I can prove I didn't do that. I don't care. You did it. It's where absurdity meets crazy making. It's where they basically do whatever they can to drive you completely, to set you on fire. The goal is to get you into crazy making. The goal is to discredit you and to get you to discredit yourself. But they gaslight you to get you triggered. They want to trigger you because it creates the emotional response in you that they need to generate whatever it is that they're trying to, however it is they want to motivate you, whether it's to get you to vote a certain way, whether it's to get you to go protest something, And, they can use advertisements, they can use TV for this. Media is a huge one. Media's used a lot. Now they have bots that they put onto social media. This is like AI bots, but they really kind of have a goal in mind, and it sounds like people, so you would have no idea it's not people. And those things go out with kind of an agenda, so they'll go and they'll just repeat comments. So people are reading through comments thinking that they're dealing with other people, and in fact, there's actually this huge flood of AI, what's called like just like a chat bot, anybody can go get a chat bot. They have like programs for that all over the place. So not very intelligent. They're really not. A little bit hard to find. The more sophisticated they are, it's harder to tell that they are one. But overall, you're not dealing with people. So you're reading comments, and like 70% of them, the people are just, oh, I'm so mad. We're so oppressed. This is such crap. And you're thinking, yeah, this is crap. But, like maybe 30 of the 100 people in the room are really people. And now you're being motivated to go with the crowd, because not going with the crowd, back in the day, not being in the crowd means danger, right? What happens to the calf that breaks off from its group? It gets picked off by the lion. So not following the crowd is at the very root of our core, it's dangerous. We stick together because that's how we're strong. So when you start seeing that the crowd is going a certain direction, it's hard to not kind of ask yourself, geez, I was kind of thinking this, but maybe these people are right. And you start talking yourself into it. What you don't know is you've been corralled into that. It's not organic, and it's not real. But how would you know? Because they hide behind, what is it? Plausible deniability. Can't prove it's a bot. Right? Somebody can, but not you, not on a chat board, not trying to get a read on what's going on in the pulse of the world, right? So this is how much it's gotten. This is the level that it's gotten to. This is how they've managed to go. So I'm going to take a break right now, and then I'll come back and do the last of these. Maybe I can get these uploaded today, hopefully. And so I'm going to stop here for now.